over the last couple decades, we have witnessed an absolute explosion of options when it comes to creamy white beverages. The not milk movement is here with promises of a healthy, environmentally friendly alternative to dairy. With oat milk set to be our rising star, having taken over the shelves across the world, it is time to ask why. Today's video is sponsored by Storyblocks. Now, I remember when plant-based milks felt super weird and novel because I'm like 30 years old. It started with the soy craze, and every time a new kind of beverage came out, there was always this moment of like, we can make milk out of that? Now we're drinking juice out of pretty much any nut we can find. Do not take that out of context. But that was just my experience growing up in Canada. Turns out, plant-based milks have been around for like a very long time. In many parts of the world, nearly a millennia, likely starting with coconut milk. But the Chinese have been using soy milk for generations and even centuries, and they have cookbooks talking about almond milk from the 13th century. Almond milk in particular became an important dairy replacement in the Middle Ages during fasting periods like Lent. So it's not just a trend today, it happens to be a drink with long-standing and deep cultural relevance. North America did not invent weird oat milks and stuff, okay? We're not that original. But here in North America, it took a bit longer for almond milks and other alt milks to really take over. Today, we have a huge number of former cow milk guzzlers who have ditched dairy. According to one poll, nearly 1 in 3 Americans now use non-dairy milks at least once a day, with more than half of those using it specifically or partly for health or environmental reasons. But here is the problem with most alternative milks. They don't taste like milk. They don't froth like it, and in many cases, they don't even really look like milk. Culturally, cow's milk has become a massive part of so many of our daily routines that to create an alternative that satisfies every single one of our expectations is almost certainly bound to disappoint. Now, there was the early adopters who were willing to overlook grainy textures and a lackluster flavor for the sake of the planet. But to say that the road has been rocky to get to where we are today would be an understatement. Turns out almond crops kill whole generations of bees and use an insane amount of water. Soy plantations often come with a side of deforestation, and coconut harvesting is rife with human rights violations. Not only were these plant-based milks a little weird tasting, but they were becoming rife with controversy too, until oat milk came in and blew us all away.
What I was thinking of was, I can't believe you've done this.
Oat milk is the valedictorian of the plant-based movements. They speak for everyone, and they are the perfect embodiment of what everyone wants to be. They also have gray hair. Oats can be grown in colder climates, so we don't have to ship oats in from questionable farms halfway around the world. And they're relatively low impact as a crop in terms of pesticides and water. On top of this, we already have a pretty well-developed supply chain with 50 to 90% of global oat production going into animal fodder already. The idea here is that instead of creating new demand, oat milk can just take over the pre-existing market as dairy loses popularity. The two kind of just exchange for each other. They're not perfect, of course. We do recognize that there are often problems with things like pesticides that are used on industrial farms, but on a sustainability level, while there's a lot of debate around the subject, the general consensus is that we haven't really been able to do a whole lot better. But one thing that really mattered hadn't quite clicked into place, and this is where they needed to take a trip to Flavortown. Oatly as a brand made alt milks great again. They finally nailed the creaminess, the texture, and the flavor that most people could accept in replacement of their dairy norms, all while addressing the pesticide problems and the environmental issues. The end result was a pretty perfect combination of something that tastes better and is better for the planet. Are you looking for stock footage of somebody drinking a generic milk-like substance in a kitchen? Funny enough, so were we. And that is why we use Storyblocks. Storyblocks is a rapid video creation platform that helps creatives and businesses of any size make videos with royalty-free 4K HD footage, After Effects, and Premiere Pro templates. They also have music, images, sound effects, and so many other assets from their demand-driven library. They quite literally give you everything that you would need to create a video with crazy good quality that is going to impress any audience. I mean, honestly, you watch our videos, they're impressive. I think, anyways. Also, the Storyblocks plugin for Adobe Premiere Pro helps video creators make videos faster by allowing them to search, download, and try out different content from our library of over 1 million royalty-free stock assets directly within Premiere Pro. And Storyblocks has been a part of our process since our first video. Storyblocks is really making content creation easy for anyone to do, and they have been a game changer for us. So if you want to learn more about Storyblocks and their affordable subscription plans, you can check out the link down in the description. A massive thank you to Storyblocks for making this video possible and making our videos so much easier to produce. Let's get back into it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Oatly that you've probably heard of today was not some unlikely Harry Potter story where they just randomly stumble into success without a clue of what they're doing. No, this is a lot more Slytherin than that. Nah. Oatly was founded in Sweden and stayed afloat for a couple of decades without making any real waves until a new CEO by the name of Tony Peterson took the reins and just completely revamped their image. Peterson, with 2 S's, big idea was to wheedle his way into the American market, which was increasingly interested in dairy alternatives at the time. So he switched up the Oatly branding to include English, made the font bigger and bolder, and commissioned research to support their new image as a champion of sustainability. By the time Oatly entered the American market, Pacific Foods had been selling Americans a competing product for 2 decades with unremarkable results. But when Oatly entered the scene, it was like an oat milk tsunami sweeping over the nation. That sounded very ominous. This is not like they didn't like kill people with the oat milk. Peterson began the takeover by targeting baristas at high-end coffee shops who would then recommend their products to their customers. Sort of a top-down filtration system, just like your pour-over coffee. Next thing you know, people started swarming to the drink so quickly that Oatly ran out of product, and opportunists started selling 12 packs on Amazon for over $200 freaking a carton. Shipping not included. Since then, interest in Oatly has only grown, if maybe not at the same fever pitch. Pre-COVID, alt milk in general was on the rise, but when the pandemic buying set in, sales really exploded. And then in 2021, Oatly broke its record at $643 million in revenue. That's a lot of ding-dongs. It almost seemed like Oatly was going to be the one alt milk to rule them all, a perfect storm of health, sustainability, and taste, and catchy slogans. Unfortunately, it couldn't quite hold up to its own branding. While Oatly's new image churned up a whole lot of attention, not all of it was quite the right kind. Turns out the dairy industry had a long and major beef with the now alternative milk world. Something about using the term milk really rubbed them the wrong way. A huge part of the Oatly brand is devoted exclusively to villainizing the dairy industry, a business tactic that hasn't gone over so well with dairy groups, as you might expect. Oatly's slogans perfectly exemplify this. Notably, it's like milk, but made for humans, accurate, but definitely targeted. This kind of aggressive advertising earned them a lawsuit from the Swedish dairy lobby for disparaging cow milk. Oatly didn't win that particular court case, but managed to milk the loss and boost sales when they published the text of the lawsuit, making themselves look like the victim in an unfair bullying situation. Now let's not get it twisted though. The dairy industry can definitely be a bully. The cow's milk that people in my generation were drinking by the pint glass 3 meals a day was literally shoved down our throats by dairy PR campaigns. In North America, the industry has incredible lobbying power within the government to do things like obscure health risks and even force schools to provide dairy for children. This is starting to feel like another future-proof episode though. Let us know if you'd be interested in learning about that. And if you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. We'll get back into it here in a second. And so it was that Oatly found themselves enmeshed in an utterly vicious milk war. We don't have the time to get into all of the details of this grisly affair, but it has been a dramatic 7 years or so for the Swedish dairy and alt dairy industries, complete with attack ads, lawsuits, and political campaigns. It is now illegal in the EU for plant-based beverages to call themselves milk, but for Oatly, the damage to their image may just have been the worst outcome of all. My writer wrote that joke. That is Holly's fault. I laughed when I read it, and I didn't laugh when I said it, and I'm sorry. Outcome. Turns out Oatly is not invincible, and their controversy is maybe even a teensy bit more dramatic than the other vegan milks you've seen on the shelf. And this is all to do with the way that Oatly presented itself. Sure, other oat milk companies have had their issues too, but none of them spent quite as much time and energy claiming to be a sustainable option made for humans. Their implication was obvious: we're a healthy alternative that saves the planet. And yet Oatly has come under fire on both of these fronts. Theoretically, oat milk is a reasonably healthy drink. Every food has its pros and cons, but for the most part, people aren't super worried about oats. And like other grains, they even contain a special fiber with some unique effects, including possibly reducing the risk of cancer. Sure, it's not the most nutrient-dense food out there and has far less protein than cow milk, a fact which the dairy farmers are very, very happy to point out time and time again. But for most people, it's not like the biggest concern out there. But while homemade oat milk can be a wholesome two-ingredient endeavor, Oatly does a bit more to it than just blend up some oats and some water. It tastes good for a reason. Partly because the production processes that liquefies the oats also breaks down the starches into simple sugar like maltose, which, by the way, has a higher glycemic index than other sugars we regularly consume, including glucose and sucrose. Although they have to list this on the nutritional label as an added sugar, they don't actually have to list it in their ingredients. So they're able to retain that delightful sweetness while saying that their main products don't contain any added sweeteners like cane sugar. With sugar being such a demonized substance these days, it's unsurprising that Oatly came under a lot of fire for this little detail, complete with viral and scathing articles comparing it to the quintessentially bad for you drink, Coca-Cola. It doesn't help that Oatly also uses other demonized substances like canola oil that helps give the milk that lovely velvety feel. But the reality is, its mere presence, even if it's non-GMO, is enough to raise red flags for many, many consumers. So their health benefits have been a little corrupted by the need to make the stuff widely appealing and taste good. But surely their environmental impacts hold up though, right? Sadly, when Oatly came to America, they took a page out of America's corporate notebook and they started bending data to present themselves in the best possible light. Famously, some of their attack ads got banned from making the misleading claim that their products create 73% less CO2 compared to dairy. It is true that oat milk produces far less emissions than cow milk, but Oatly was making a bit of a meal out of it. Now, to kind of bring you back up to speed here, Oatly is obviously not the only oat milk company on the planet, but it exemplifies something that happens all the time. The underdog story, the upcoming trend or technology that promises to change the world for the better, gets the benefit of the doubt until they start facing similar problems and temptations to all the other big business that they set out to change, and then they're the bad guy. As of 2021, Oatly is officially just another publicly traded company. Their primary motivation as of this point is to make profit for their shareholders. And they use a lot of all too familiar tactics to do it. They've bent data in their favor. They've sold a huge stake of their company to investors tied to deforestation. And just last year, they sued a small family-run oat farm trying to pass off as Oatly or something, even though they don't really look similar at all. Now, as a person who drinks oat milk, this is a harder video for me to make because I want oat milk to be good. And for the most part, it is. So this is where I tell you what I would do in your position. Most healthcare professionals would agree that oat milk does not present any serious health risks. And despite their incredible penchant for drama, Oatly and other oat milks are the most sustainable milk option that you can drink for the most part. I personally am never going to blend up oats and water to make my own beverage because I'm lazy, but I do try and buy local options whenever possible. So wherever you are, look for something that is in your area and do a bit of your own research. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, remember to literally like it, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be chugging milk with you in the next one. Oat milk, that is.